you find people that augment your weaknesses, right? That's what you want to do in reality is there's certain things a leader needs to do. They need to communicate. I think that's probably the biggest skill set a leader has. If you're good at that and you're not scared of that, you can really develop leadership traits. And then if they're lifelong learners, they get better at things. But for sure, you look around and you try to find people that will have real deep skill sets in areas that you don't. That's to me the definition of diversity on management team.
Well, hello everyone. This is another episode of Up Next, and I get a chance to talk with Tom Koos, a leader, a mentor, a role model for me, someone that I've known for a number of years. How are you?
I'm good, Tommy. Good to see you this morning. Happy Veterans Day.
Same here to you as well too. Hey Tom, a lot of times talk to me a little bit. What do you do for a living? Here we are in your office. I see your wonderful office. Share with the audience a little bit what you do for a living.
Yeah, so right now, Tommy, I'm the CEO of a building materials business. We're in everything you can see behind me, from fashion hardware to nails and screws. We're the largest contract manufacturer of nails and screws in the world. We do distribution for shingles, for insulation, for cabinetry. We do just about anything that you might use to remodel, repair your home.
Got it. Yeah. And for you, a lot of times, it seems like you've gone through a lot of different industries. Talk to me a little bit about your work journey over the years.
Yeah, so my wife would joke that I either have a 7-year itch or I can't hold a job. It's one of the two, maybe a little bit of both. I came out of college and I was a finance guy. I was an accountant / finance guy and grew up in Iowa. So I went to work for a company called Square D Company, which is now the Schneider Group out of France. And I just kind of worked. That's all I've really ever known how to do is just work. And I went from finance to marketing, worked my way into general management. By then I was with a company called Newell, which is today Newell Rubbermaid. I moved from there to Black & Decker. And that was Black & Decker DeWalt and Power Tools. I then went into the private equity world, became a CEO with Jacuzzi brand. So most people know hot tubs, whirlpool baths. Then went to Weber Grill, which was a family-owned company. I was the first non-family CEO at Weber Grill. And now I'm with PrimeSource Brands, which is, as I said, a building materials company. So there's a kind of a common theme throughout where the customers are similar. Okay. So I started selling Home Depot products and Lowe's products and Ace Hardware products very, very early in my career. And most of those roles, if you think about it, were branded companies, right? Jacuzzi, Weber, Black & Decker, DeWalt. This one is less branded, but the customer base is exactly the same. We sell Home Depot and Lowe's. We sell every lumber yard in America. We sell Ace Hardware. Talked to my friend John Van Huysen, who's a Chicago guy there last week. So that's kind of the common theme is consumer durables sold through the same channels of trade, used by professionals in repair and remodel.
Yeah. Tom, with the Resource Global Network, we had 13 different global cities around the world. Some of them are working startups, corporations, family businesses, everything like that. As you look upon, I mean, it's been a journey with all of these different companies. What are some of the lessons that you remember specifically from a couple of those companies that you've worked with that really were defining moments or things that changed your life or help you grow as a leader, good or bad?
There's a lot of questions in there, Tommy. I think part of what happens as you go through multiple steps in your career or you're with multiple companies, early on, by the way, from a global perspective, the Black & Decker job, the Jacuzzi job, the Weber job were all very international. In fact, did over half our revenue in all three of those companies from outside of the United States. A lot in Western Europe, a lot in South America. We did less revenue in Asia and in places like China and Taiwan, but we purchased a lot of goods there. So I've had the opportunity to be all over the world, and it's been a lot of fun. Coming back to the lessons, there's a couple. I was taught very early on, and my kids would roll their eyes now. The lesson was called be the garbage man. And what that means is no matter what role you're in, if you become that go-to person for your supervisor, your boss, that does the nasty jobs, right? And I call it garbage because it's usually dirty and smelly and nobody wants to take it out. If you get in the habit of doing those jobs, it's amazing how you end up getting the next job and the next job and the
Yeah.
next job. And I joke, pretty soon you're driving the garbage truck and pretty soon you own the garbage company. But be the garbage man. That would be the first thing I would tell anybody in any role. By the way, I would tell that to you. I would tell that to
Hmm.
myself if I
Hmm.
went to take a
Hmm.
new job, is go right at the nastiest, dirtiest, smelliest part of the job right away and get it done. Um, the other one that I would use, and I'll just give you a couple because there's so many, is you don't really, in my opinion, you don't work for companies, you work for individuals. And so work
Hmm.
for a person that you respect and that I used to use as a rock star. Now the TV commercials today say we can't call each other rock stars. I used to say, follow a rock star because the band will be pretty good if you follow a rock star. And I've always had success with that. I've had great mentors, great leaders over time, males, females, foreign, United States, didn't matter. If you follow a really, really good leader, it just rubs off on you. You just learn good habits. You see some bad ones occasionally, you know which ones to get rid of. But if you're working for a boss that you simply can't stand, get a new job. It's just not worth
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
You're not going to learn anything and it's not going to be any fun. And then the last one I would add, so the three would be the garbage man, find a rock star to be your boss. And then the third one would be sectors matter. I didn't used to think as much about this, but now when I look back, it's a Monday morning, the week after the election. There's all kinds of parts and pieces moving. Um, what sectors are going to be really attractive as you think about companies, right? If I went back, I'm now 60. I've been at this a long time, been married 35 years. We like to reflect on the moves we've made and the careers I've been in. I had some really cool jobs. I mean, I can run power tools. I know hot tubs. Think about doing market research with hot tubs. It's not bad, right? It's fun. But those sectors go through cycles and they roll up and down. If I was to go back to my 21-year-old self, there's a couple things that would have been really attractive back then. Um, anything software, anything software was very attractive as you look back, right? I came out of college, we were still using punch cards to do physical
Yeah.
inventories in a
Yeah.
manufacturing plant, right? So software. Another one would have been healthcare.
Yeah.
Look at the aging of America and really the aging of the world. You just kind of look around the world and you're going to see healthcare become a bigger and bigger piece of everybody's GDP. So for the young people out there, find segments that are going to grow because if you're in a segment that's going to grow, honestly, you can be a lot more average and have a great career. If you can be fantastic and be in I used to joke in the bobby pin business. Remember that used to be a real world.
Hmm.
Now they don't even hardly exist anymore. So, um, three things: take out the garbage, find a great boss, and find a segment that is going to grow.
Yeah, Tom, I still remember one of my first bosses that I ever had. His name was Dan Campagna. And one of the best advice that he always gave me, Tom, is don't ever feel like you're too good to do something. It all goes back to what you were saying in terms of being a garbage man. You may work for a boss who may have a problem that no one else could deal with, or he may give you a job that nobody wants to do and he just needs someone to take care of. You want to be
Yeah,
that person. You want to be
you
that
do.
go-to person that he always works with.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit, Tommy, in there that you always want to be able to be a player coach too, right? You want to, if there is something going on that your team just hasn't figured out or doesn't know how to do, it's nice to be able to dive in and teach, right? And teach. I find it to be fun. They find it to be a blast because there's the boss, like, doing the same thing they do on a daily basis. So that helps too, being a player coach and
Yeah.
jumping in and being a worker every now and then.
You mentioned you're now in your 60s now. How have you changed as a leader over the years? Have you seen
Mm.
your approach not soften but change over time?
Oh, sure. I mean, I've got a bunch of folks with me that have been with me for a long time, and it's funny how they talk about the younger Tom. Um, and I think what happens once you get a little more confident in yourself and in your abilities, you actually become a lot better at being
Mm.
a leader because you then listen more and talk less. And if I was gonna, throw a fourth thing to do to be a better leader, listen more, talk less. That's just a rule of life, but it's really important in leadership. Um, I've learned how to do that. I've developed more patience. Interestingly enough, I probably hire and fire more quickly, Tommy.
Mm.
When I was younger, I used to have this, I used to see the good in people, and I would believe that I could help coach them out of their challenges and whatever. That's usually not the case. When you've got a staff member or an employee that you just got a really bad vibe about, and they're not going to make it, and they're not performing well, they're probably not going to change for what it's worth.
Mm.
Now, it's also good to wait a little too long to let somebody go. But I find now I make moves more quickly because I realize it's for the betterment of the team. And there's a lot of other little lessons. You learn to travel better. I would tell you, you travel too much. It's hard on your body, and you're not as good when you're tired. You're not as good, and so you end up learning how to travel better, maybe not less, but better. And you hire better people, and
Yeah.
you learn that the strength of a team is truly about how good your people are. I think most young leaders, they're if there is a ceiling to most leaders, it's that they never really learn that lesson. They never really learn that. They want to be the smartest person in the room because they
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's what gives them power, right? When in reality, you get so much better when you kind of look around and laugh and you wonder, why am I running the place? Drew should be running it, or Jane should be running it. They're better than me. That's when the team gets really good.
Yeah. Tom, did it force you not to really be able to look at your leadership style by finding people who were different than you in skill sets? Like, how did you build your team? Or do you find people that were very similar to you? What would you say to that question?
Yeah, I mean, it. The answer is yes. You find people that augment your weaknesses, right? That's what you want to do. In reality, is there are certain things a leader needs to do. They need to communicate. I think that's probably the biggest skill set a leader has. If you're good at that and you're not scared of that, you can really develop leadership traits. And then if they're lifelong learners, they get better at things. But for sure, you look around and you try to find people that will have real deep skill sets in areas that you don't. That's to me the definition of diversity
Yeah.
on the management team. Now, if they happen to look different and they happen to be of different ethnicity or race, or that's awesome. But you don't
Mm-hmm.
always get that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you and I could join a management team. We're more alike than different in many
Yeah.
ways, right? And yet we're different in many ways that people would call diversity. You and I on the same ministry leadership team wouldn't add much diversity,
No.
to be
Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
frank,
Yeah.
right? So find people that do things that you don't do well, or find somebody that does something really, really well. It might be something that you do okay, but when you get people that have, like I call it, if you play cards, they're deep in a suit. They're just deep in a suit. If you've got people on your team that have that, usually people are only always they always say management team is as good as its weakest link. I don't believe that. I mean, who's the weakest link on the Kansas City Chiefs right now? I don't know, but I know they're 9-0 and Patrick Mahomes is
Yeah.
really good,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So find people that are in key positions that are really good at something, and you'll probably end up with a pretty good team.
Yeah. Tom, what does it mean to be secure as a leader? If I say that to you, what would you say that? What would you say to me about that?
Um, I mean, for you, I don't tell me for me, it's pretty easy. This isn't what defines me. This just isn't what defines me. How good our company does, I want it to do well because I want to see other people succeed, and I want to see them attain life goals, and I want to see them happy and financially secure and all those things. But if it doesn't happen, and that's not what God's plan is, okay. This does not define me. I think as I grew up through leadership roles and had some success and some failure, you start to figure that out, that you're really not in control. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I've grown up as a Christian, um, and yet it took me a long time to figure that out. And that sounds funny. That may tell you I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but it took me a long time to figure out that I'm not in control. And so the more I lean on the Lord to help me lead, the better I am. The more I lean on myself, I'm not so good at it, to be very candid. And some people call it servant leadership. I guess it kind of is, but the servant leadership is more being the garbage man in my mind, right? Do the things that you have to do. But I think it's just understanding that this is a little bit of your life journey is I've been put in leadership roles to try to, I'm convinced to influence other people and help them along their journeys. But how do you get more secure in it? It's when you realize that you don't really matter. You're not that big of a deal. That my kids love to tell me that all the time. Like, you're not that big of a deal, Dad. It's helpful.
Or Tom, one of the things I've also realized about being secure as a leader is that I'm not good at everything, and it's
For
okay.
sure.
And so a lot of times when I sit in a meeting and the team and someone else on the team comes up with a great idea and everyone looks at that person and says, wow, you're really good at this. I'm not the
Mhm.
insecure guy who says, wait, I'm the leader. Let me turn the conversation to talk about how great I am, that you're
Mhm.
secure in who you are, that, wow, it's really good that so-and-so has really done well and that we've created an atmosphere, a culture where they could thrive.
Oh, for sure. I mean, finding others succeeding is a big deal, right? There's all kinds of theories management by walking around. Um, when you do reviews, make sure you have more good than bad. They're all great things, but the minute you find somebody succeeding and cherish their success and really honor their success, you watch the other people, on the team, and it's a big deal, right? It's a big deal. I mean, I think most of my team would say I'm a pretty good leader, but I think they would also say there's a lot that I don't know. There's a lot that I let them do.
One of the things that you mentioned, I want to turn around to the ministry in the church world. You said a lot of times you've learned to let people go from their
Hmm.
job if you just can't do the job. I sit in the ministry world where they say, Tom, the ministry world is not like the business world. We got to have grace. We got to believe in people. We got to give people different chances. What would you say if a pastor was in the room or were serving in the church or everything together? Would you still have the same mentality or advice too?
Yeah, I would have the same advice, and I do understand because I've seen it and I've lived it. The tolerance or the grace mentality. If you go a step farther, look, I think the challenge there is um, it hurts the rest of the team. It hurts the rest of the team when you let some individual not do well in their role, and over time, the rest of the team watches that, and then they don't. Ultimately, someone will decide they don't want to be part of that team. Because if the boss isn't demanding everybody, run at tempo or hold up their end of the deal or get better, um, why do you want to be part of that team, right? Why do you want to be part of that team? So I had a situation here at my local church that the pastor, who's a good friend of mine, came to me, and he wanted to play golf, and I couldn't figure it out because he's a terrible golfer. He didn't even like it. Um, and on about the third hole, I understood he said, "Hey, can I talk to you about a staffing situation?" I'm like, that's why you wanted to play golf. And he's like, "Yeah, I just wanted to get you out here and get you alone." And he talked for about 2 minutes, and I said, "Just let him go. I don't even know who it is, Ross. I don't know which one of your team it is, but let him go." He goes, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, you got to let him go because um, it's going to be a problem that will grow and manifest in the rest of the team." So look, team dynamics are team dynamics, whether you're in a church or in a ministry, you're on an athletic team, you're in a company. You've got to keep making the team better. And the way to do that is you get rid of the lower links. It's one of the
Mm.
only ways to do it. They either have to get better or you get rid of them and then you replace with somebody that may be at the top of the ladder and the rest of the team picks it up, right? Think of if you've ever been a runner, but if you're in a running group, there's one thing that really good runners like to do. They like to run with runners that are faster than them.
Mm.
That's the only way you get faster. If you want to be the fastest group in your running group training for the Chicago Marathon, God bless, you're not going to get any faster. You're just not. You're
Mm.
only going to get faster if you got guys and gals around you that run faster than you do. So I've always dealt with team dynamics that way. I respect the fact that maybe a little more difficult in a founder-based ministry, for instance, whose cousin Billy has been there since day one or something.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. That's harder, right? But it doesn't change the team dynamic. If cousin Billy can't do his role, you're not going to get anybody else to want to be on that team.
Yeah. Yeah. No, very good. A younger Tom Koos, if we were to go back to your childhood, your high school years,
Hmm.
how have you seen the Lord working in your life, especially in those early years? And what were some of the things that he taught you that really molded? And the reason I ask you this question, Tommy, is my seminary professor once said to me, Tommy, you are a culmination of everything that good or bad in your life that has created you to become the person you are. Look back, what are some of the memories of your childhood that shaped you to be the person that you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty blessed, Tommy. I grew up in a very, very faithful household. I'm talking generations of faithfulness, grandpas and grandmas and aunts and uncles. I mean, we celebrate 70-year wedding anniversaries, right? I mean, we got just generations of faithfulness to spouses, to the church, to God. We were Lutheran. My wife's family was Methodist, but I was Lutheran, as you asked about my childhood. And if you know the Lutheran church, it's pretty stoic.
Yeah.
You know, it's I live in Dallas now where everything's
Yeah.
evangelical. My folks come to church with me and they're a little put off by it. But it was stoic, and people kind of lived the gospel. And so it started with me being fortunate to have two very faithful parents. And, people always ask my story, and I don't have a very dramatic story. I don't know a day that I didn't know Jesus. I know days I didn't have a very good relationship with him. I know days I was walking differently than he wanted me to walk, but I don't remember a day I didn't believe in Jesus, which drives other conversations about why didn't you walk with him. But because of that, my household was great. I've got a brother who's got a master's in divinity. He was great to have as a younger brother, still is. And so all along my journey, I was being taught and being molded. And I don't know where God wants to put me next. I don't know how long he'll have me on this planet, obviously, and where I go next. What I do know is looking back, every step I was on, he was teaching me something. And sometimes I figured it out quickly. Sometimes I didn't. I played sports a lot, Tommy. I played ball all the way through college. My dad was a coach. My mom and dad were both teachers. Um, I learned a lot from the athletic field, a lot. I wasn't a great player, but I probably got more out of my talent than I deserved. And then in the working world, like I said, I've been kicked around a little bit. I've been fired before. I've been
Yeah.
promoted a bunch. I've learned a lot. And you kind of wake up and figure out that, okay, God's got me in this day at this moment for a specific reason. What is that? What is that? And I probably figured that out about 10 years ago.
Mm. What happened 10 years ago? Did something happen that caused you to think that way, or it was just a realization?
I was going through a journey, and then I actually got fired from a job, um, which I'd never been fired before. I love saying it. You know I do. We've
Hmm.
talked about it. Um, I think everybody should get fired at least once. I wouldn't recommend making it a habit, but I think it's
Yeah.
pretty good at least once because um, it's humbling. It is super humbling. You start to figure out whether or not your identity was in your job, was it in your title, was it in your business card? And I think all of us fall victim to that. All of us fall victim to that pride. And it was really, really good for me. It made me step back. It made me get deeper in my faith, deeper in my marriage. And I'm better for it. I'm way better for it. But that was a little bit of a cataclysmic moment. There's not that many of those. Just a lot of steps where when I would kind of start depending too much on myself or getting too prideful, God has you just got to believe the old saying, if you want to hear God laugh, just tell him your plan, right?
Yeah.
And just laugh. So,
One of the constant questions I get from our leaders from around the world, this is what I believe God is calling me to do. This is what I think that God's calling me to do. You've gone through different jobs, you've gone through different companies, you've also been a man of faith. And sometimes where I'm concerned is that we may want something so bad, we've convinced ourselves that this is what God's calling is for us to
mm.
do something. Tom, how do you tell the difference, even for you? When did you know it was time to go? When did you know about the decision you had to make? How do you tell the difference between what my want and desire is versus what God's will is?
I'm not sure I do to this day, Tommy. Quite frankly, that's just something I pray about. Is if you don't want me here, then move me. That simple. If you want me here, keep me here, make me good at what I do based on how you would want me to do it. And that's been a pretty constant prayer of mine for a long time. In fact, I'll tell you a quick story that after I got let go or after I was fired, My small group suffocated me. You can imagine how that works, right? A bunch of businessmen. This is my men's small group. They suffocate me and want me to meet a guy like it's like 2 days later for breakfast. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll meet this guy. I've heard of him. I've never met him. I won't give you the name. He's a wonderful man,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll protect the facts to keep the innocent
Yeah.
um, opaque. He was running a ministry in, let's say Africa, because it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't Africa, but it could be. And let's say it's an orphanage, but it wasn't. Okay, just so nobody can
Yeah.
ever figure out who this is. And he literally sits down, prays over our breakfast, and says, I believe that God wants you to move here and do this.
Mm.
And Tommy, I literally was like, oh my goodness, no, no, there is not a chance God wants. And I literally went home that night praying, all right, if this is what you want me to do, I need to see a sign because I mean, you're talking, I was going to be living in a place. I'm a guy that likes chocolates on his pillows. I call
Yeah.
that, if I don't have it, that's camping, right? I'm not good at, I don't camp. I'm not that guy. This was going to be in a third world country and it was going to be a little different program. Now I can do that. But I'm thinking, is that what God's calling me to do? Why would I be good? And the ministry was actually something that didn't have any of my skill sets, to be quite frank. And so that was an example where I don't think that's where God wanted me to be. But boy, oh boy, it would have been easy to get sucked into that, right? That he got me out of the secular world, if you will, to go into the ministry and puts this guy in my path. 48 hours later, off I go. Yeah, I don't think it's quite that straightforward. I think stages of life. Ecclesiastes will tell us there's time and a place for everything. I think I go back to every day, God probably has someplace he wants you to be, and just keep asking him if it's here.
Yeah.
And if it's not, he'll show you. He'll show you.
Very, very good. Tom, the kids are grown. It's you and your wife
Mm,
now in Dallas. What's next, ministry wise, calling, all of that? What are some of the things that you're thinking about? I think all of our groups around the world are younger in their mid 30s. They're just beginning to have kids right now, but they're going to be at a point where you're at. What's next for you? How do you process all that?
yeah, it's a good question, Tommy. I mean, right now, I love where I'm at. I like working. I don't like the idea of retirement. I'm still looking for where in the Bible the chapter on retirement is. I haven't seen it. So do you then go into a ministry? Yeah, I think so. What Debbie and I are trying to figure out is what could we do together, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can we serve together? What would that look like? And we don't know yet. Deb was a dental hygienist by trade. In fact, when we lived in Chicago, she was very active with Willow Creek's dental practice. Went on a couple ministry trips, missionary trips a year, and did that. Yeah, that's not me. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a dentist. I don't. Maybe we could set one of those up somewhere, but we don't know. We're kind of ears to the ground and eyes wide open. Right now, I need to get this company to a different stage.
Yeah.
I need to transact it for the people that are here, and then that'll partially define what I do next. But I don't know. Again, I kind of wake up every day and I'd like to think I ask God, where do you want to use me? And then I follow. That's if
Yeah.
do we do that all the time? Probably not. Sometimes that pride thing gets in the way. But I don't know. I got a feeling it feels like we're in Texas for a reason. I would tell you that we've thought that since the day we got here. We've been here about 6 years now, 6.5 years. Feels like we're here for a reason. We've met a lot of incredible people that run some incredible ministries. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Who knows? Maybe I'll go start a cohort somewhere. You never
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. 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 Thank
You never
you.
know.
Tom, as we wrap up here, I want to ask you a couple of fast questions for you. What was your first job that you ever worked at?
I was paperboy.
Oh, you were a paper boy. Wow. Okay.
Sixth grade in Iowa, riding my bike through the snow. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. And what time did you have to get up every single morning?
5:30.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been getting up at that time of the day ever since.
Yeah.
It's been a life habit.
What was the worst job you ever had?
Mm. Oh gosh, I don't want to be vulgar. Vaccinating sheep on a friend of my grandfather's farm. My grandfather didn't have sheep. His buddy did. and we had to vaccinate sheep one day. I was like a sophomore, junior in high school. No, I'm almost guaranteeing nobody on this call has ever vaccinated sheep. You have to basically get the sheep underneath the front arms and take it down and hold it on top of you while they shoot the sheep here. It was raining. They hadn't been sheared. These sheep were bigger than me. I came home muddy, tired, mad at the world. It was terrible.
For a guy who
Terrible.
loves chocolates, is clamping and all that stuff. I'm surprised you did this, Tom.
Well, why do you think today? No, I grew up. I mean, I worked for a contractor all the way through high school and college, which probably was my love for power tools. I've blown insulation, I've baled hay, I've castrated hogs.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of tough jobs. Yeah,
Wow.
what'd you do in high school? Oh, I was a lifeguard at the pool. Oh, wow. Yeah, no, that's not a job.
Yeah.
That's a vacation. No.
What is one advice that you, for those who are sitting there who are parents, first-time parents, fathers, what advice would you give them in terms of how you raise your kids?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. For parents, I'm assuming we've got a pretty faithful crowd here, so just follow the Bible. People will tell you there's no instruction manual for this. There is. It's called the Bible. And within that context, have patience. Just have patience. Kids are gonna screw up, man. I mean, we screwed up. You're gonna make mistakes. Have patience. Give them some room to breathe. Trust them. In today's world, you and I didn't grow up with these devices everywhere where the world is at our fingertips, right? If you wanted to go find bad information or look at bad pictures, you kind of had to work at it when we were kids. Now it's at their fingertips. I think these parents that try to control all of that, that's when their kids go sideways.
Mm,
Yeah, trust kids, teach them values, and trust that they're going to make mistakes, but they're going to know the right thing to
yeah,
do
yeah.
over time, and let them work that way. We did that with our kids. I think they would have to tell you. Probably got better at it with the third than we were one and two. And they made mistakes. I
Yeah.
can name some pretty epic ones. Luckily, none of them, it took them too far down the wrong path. But look, today one's an attorney, one's a consultant with Accenture,
Yeah.
and was in the 101st Airborne, which he's a vet. So Kyle did his duty for the country, and then Trevor's an investment banker. They all chose different paths, and they're all doing great. So,
Tom, thank you very much for finding some time to talk to us today.
hey, you're welcome, Tommy. Hey, can I add one last thing to the
Yeah,
parenting?
please, please.
Great parents don't always make great kids. And I think it's important for
Mm,
people to remember that you can be a really good Christian parent and your kid just goes sideways.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Don't let that take you too far sideways. Just realize that grace will come back to them. It will, but have that patience and let it come back
yeah.
to them.
No,
So, anyway,
hey, thank you for everything you've done. South Africa, thank you for all the investment that
mm,
you've made into me and all of that. So thank you so much, Tom.
yeah, thank you, Tommy. Love you, buddy.
Talk soon.
See you.